All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is automatically recording. I gotta make sure of these things. Oh, if it says recording, it's recording. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. For those that don't know me, and if you happen to check us out on YouTube, thank you so much. My name is Daniel Umstead. I'm the owner of the Robert Nathaniel Group. And just jumping straight to the catch, I don't even want to wait any longer. The exciting news that I wanted to share with everybody this week is now I have added on a new hat, which is financial literacy. So any questions regarding credit score, how to build up your credit, I'll be more than happy to assist. And my contact information is 267-702-3756. So without further ado, make sure I get this camera angle set up. We're good to go. So today's Zoom call is in regards to doing a first time home buyers workshop. So with that being said and all, what I will be going over today is pretty much the steps to obtaining a home, questions you may have, and of course, if there's any concerns, or feel free to chat me in the box and I'll be happy to go over that with you. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Boom. And now, and try to minimize completely. There we go. So no need to focus on the face since I'm pretty much the only one not talking. So let's go back to the top. There are 24 of these, but trust me, I will be taking my time going through all of them. So no worries about that. All right, so let's buy a house. So like I said, I'm going to be going over how to get your credit and finances ready for purchasing a new home. What I will be going over with you today is your credit score, renting versus buying, loan process overview, credit and its impact on loans, pre-approval and why you need it, documentation to have ready, loan types as far as which one is right for you, assets and where to get them, and lastly, the buying process and how it intersects with your loan. So your credit score and its impact on your loan. If you haven't already, feel free to talk to a credit repair specialist, somebody who knows a little bit about financial literacy. I definitely will be having my contact information below in the video for review later. But the main thing is that find somebody, even if it's not through me, but find somebody that you can talk to in regards to your credit score. Your credit score will actually determine, and later on we will be discussing this, but we'll be determining on what type of loan that you can get, how much that you can get for a loan. So you may be making, $100,000 per year, but if your credit score is not where it's supposed to be, you might only get approved for such a small amount. And vice versa. If you're making $50,000 a year, you might be getting approved way more than somebody who does have not so great credit. So next slide. So why is your credit score important? It depends upon your loan type. The lower cost loans have credit score minimums. You may pay less fees or mortgage insurance if your credit score qualifies you for a lower rate or a conventional loan. So if somebody has a credit score of 600 compared to somebody who has a credit score of 700, the person who has the 600 credit score, even though they might be getting the loan, they're probably paying more for their mortgage insurance, or even more so for fees that honestly shouldn't be there had they just been making payments on there. So, and that's typically what I'm going to be going over today as well. Qualification and ability to repay. Your credit score is one indication of your ability to repay credit. A credit history with multiple missed payments or debts in collection can raise red flags about your ability to repay your loan. Now, what affects your credit score? History, on-time payments, no accounts and collections, length accounts have been open. And I want to make a point about that. So with your length accounts that have been open, they can be immediately erased if you do this wrong thing. So let's say you had a credit card for about 3 or 4 years, let's say 5 years, let's top it off at 5. So you had a credit card for about 5 years, and you finally got a chance to pay it off. $2,500 balance cleared and done. Now, what you shouldn't do is close that account, because to the credit bureaus, they're saying, oh, they closed the account. All that history of the revolving credit and such is completely wiped out. So if you do pay off a credit card, definitely don't use it anymore, but be sure not to close it, because you still want to use that. There's nothing wrong with having an open credit card, but there is something wrong if you got it open and you're using it over its limit and such. The number of accounts, so depending upon the number of accounts, with that, I am not the expert on it, but I will find some information. Or if you had a direct question in regards to it, more than welcome to feel free to reach out to me and I can get that answer for you. And your balance below 30% of the credit line. So keeping your balance below 30% of credit line is really good. So don't think of a $1,000 credit card, more so think of a $300 credit card and what you can use it for. If you have a $10,000 credit card, $3,000 credit limit. Your types of accounts, loans, revolving and installment, depending type of loan that you have, whether it's a quick payday cash loan or if it's something that is an installment, such as a car and such, and even more so with credit cards as well, the type of balance that you have with that. What kind of defaults you have on your, can affect your score. So such as bankruptcy, foreclosure, judgments, charge-offs and such can affect it as well. And then how can you fix your credit? Credit repair. There are specific companies who work solely on helping people improve their credit score. And yes, I can help you. Like I said, I recently joined this week in regards to being a financial literacy specialist. So if you are ready to get your credit in repair and get it going to where it needs to be at, trust me, it is not even in the $1,000 marker. It is in the very low 3-digit marker. So would love to go over that with you in further detail if you are interested. And I could definitely tell you about that further. But moving forward, credit report review. A credit review can show how to improve your credit almost down to the point. By starting the pre-approval process now, you can address credit issues well in advance of buying a home. Now, the credit report review, that is something that I actually have with the program. Back to what I do with the credit repair specialist is that they actually show you when you go into your own personal account, because of course I don't have access to your information, but it will show you ways to improve your credit, and specifically, and I mean down to the penny, as far as how much you may need to put on a credit card, installment loan, what have you, in order to get your score increased. Now, moving forward, credit can potentially improve by what we had discussed: paying off and down credit card debt, paying off down student or auto loans, refinancing existing debt to a lower payment, and lastly, using a credit card and pay it consistently every month, not keeping a high balance. So let's say you do get like a secured credit card or unsecured credit card and such, and you have a balance. Make sure that you're keeping that balance on a consistent basis, not having a high balance over time. So if you have a $300 secured credit card balance, hey, keep it under that 30%, $90. I know it's tempting and it's like, oh my gosh, I really wanted to get these shoes, or I really needed this, or I really needed that. You got to step back and look like, and what am I doing with this card? I'm trying to build my credit. So keeping that balance where it needs to be at to move forward will get you there. Now, getting pre-approved and why you need it. A lot of people say like, well, I'm ready to buy a house right now. I'm ready to get in right now. There are still steps that you need to do to get pre-approved, and you'll see why in the coming slides. So why do I need one? Well, going through the approval process early gives you an advantage when shopping for a home. Getting a pre-approval will save you a lot of time and stress once you found the home you want to buy. Fixing potential credit issues before starting search. And this is why I had mentioned, hey, you're able to pay off a credit card, wait for that month or two so it could show up on your credit report, because now maybe that certain credit card is showing that, hey, this person went from a 600 to a 640 paying off that credit card. So, and in addition, credit issues, there may be something on your credit report where you're like, hey, I thought that was paid off, or I thought that was charged off. So this gives you an idea that step before. Awareness of assets and documents needed for loan process, which we'll go over later on. And we'll direct home search so you know exactly how much you can afford. Because the worst thing that you want to do is find your dream home and it's $150,000. You have the money to put down on it, set aside, but based upon your pre-approval and your credit, it's showing that you can only afford 125,000. And trust me, I've heard way too many stories where that could definitely feel like a knife straight through the heart and back. So, and lastly, will be requested by sellers when placing an offer on a home. So you're going to need it anyway. A seller is not just going to say like, oh, you seem like a good, right individual. Yeah, I'll give you the house for 125,000. Let's go. So make sure you do have one in process. Now, what is a pre-approval? A pre-approval is the process where a lender reviews documentation to support the financial information a potential borrower gives on their loan application. A lender will look at the borrower's income, available assets, credit score, and employment history. Now, renting versus buying. Now, the thing with renting versus buying, and it really depends upon your current situation. I will be honest with you. I know I'm a credit repair specialist, and I know that I should be pushing, especially being a realtor as well, I should be pushing you to buy. But I'm taking a step back just as I want you to take a step back and really look. Where you're currently living at or where you're looking to live at, is it just for temporary reasons or is it going to be something long term? Myself, I am currently renting, but what I am renting is an actual home, so it doesn't make me seem like I'm in this rental process, but I could be putting my money towards purchasing, which I actually am planning on doing by the end of this year. So you got to look back at yourself and don't feel like, oh, here we go, I know buying is better than renting. At the end of the day, the question is, which one is right for me? So, and questions to ask yourself: do you plan on being in your home for 5 or more years? Versus renting versus buying? Yes, it does make sense to purchase your home if you are looking to stay in one specific spot for 5 or more years. Do you have funds saved that could be used towards closing? If not, then it's like, okay, well, I got enough to pay my rent. Okay, but if in the long run, back to that first question, if you plan on staying in one place for 5 years, you do better trying to save up for 2 years so that way that third year you can work on getting that home. Do you like the idea of building equity? Who doesn't like the idea of paying rent or a mortgage and then knowing by the end of the year that your property value increased by a certain amount? Are you living in a high rent area? Are you in an area right now where it's like, oh man, I'm renting this, but man, if I could probably purchase this properly, maybe I could probably rent it out to others at a higher rate. So that's something to think about. And lastly, are you ready to pay your own mortgage instead of your landlord's? So think about it this way. I will be honest with you and open because everything in life is temporary. I am currently paying $928 for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home in the Mayfair neighborhood, which is great. But the mortgage on this property is only about $550. Now, with the utilities and expenses and all this extra stuff, what I pay in rent could be covering my home. On top of that, in the long run, had I owned this current property that I'm at right now, for the long run, you need to think about it like, oh, wow, he could be building equity over time and getting the place to where it needs to be at if he wants to rent it out on your own. So again, are you ready to pay your own mortgage instead of your landlord's? And back to the first question, do you plan on being in your home for 5 or more years, or is this a short-term thing? Food for thought. Renters don't pay for repairs. Your landlord's profit pays for the repairs. So understand this. So if there's a repair, such as an issue from your property that the landlord has to dish out, such as a leaky faucet or cracked ceiling or roof needs to be replaced, your landlord's profit is the one that pays for the repairs. So think about that. And renters don't have to worry about the market. If you're renting right now, you don't have to worry about it. The market's going up and down. The investor does because all they're doing is selling the property to another investor or a non-investor. So, and the reason why I say that is simply this. Let's say, take my example, for instance, and I want you to really relate to it. $928. I'm paying $928 on the first of the month, which I need to do today, on the first of the month, and giving it to the landlord, over and over and over and over and over again. And then at the end of the year, at the end of the lease, they're like, hey, just to let you know, we're going up 3%. So next time, probably around January, February, when my lease is up, I'll be looking at probably around 950. So now as the landlord, the investor, the person who owns the property is like, is this property still good to have? Am I getting my money's worth? You know what? I could give it to somebody else and they could change it and probably switch it around and do better. And I could keep the profits that I want because I'm going to sell it at a good price. So with that being said, you got this other person coming in and saying, whoa, you're only paying $950 for an area that probably should be $1,300 to $1,400. Yeah, let's balance this out. You have X amount of days to pay this. Boom, you're out of a home. So to prevent that situation, that's why it's always looking at that rent versus buy. If you plan on staying for a year, great. But if it's going to be more than that, you might want to think in the long term, because if somebody sees a gold mine with the property that you're renting, they may just increase it just to match what the current market is offering. So some food for thought, y'all. How can you protect your investment? Now, this goes back to the pre-approved process. You want to stay in a comfortable budget that isn't stretching your means in the event of a job loss or market shifts, kind of like the current ones we're having right now. You want to find a home that has good bones, but may need some cosmetic repairs where you can gain equity. So good bones means that it's a good structure. So the floorboards aren't creaking or anything like that, or the holes in the wall, aren't as big as a fist or everything. But it's just basic cosmetic repairs. If there's a couple of cracks in the ceiling, or former wall hangings and such, and you need to put some spackle and paint over it, great. So that's what I mean by finding a home that has good bones. Keep a separate savings account for house repairs and contribute to it each month. Now, if you are renting, and you're looking to get out of your parents' place, or just ultimately just trying to find your own place, you should be having a separate savings account for your house repairs. Now, the idea is to make sure you understand that that savings account is specifically for savings for your house repairs, not because you want to have a good weekend, not because you want to wait till after this whole fun charade blows over and we get back to our normal lives. And it's like, whoa, I could use that extra money I've been put away for savings. No, your separate savings account is strictly for the house repairs, and in addition to be building up for savings for closing costs as well. The other thing, or for your next property, I should say, the other thing, and this is for the sellers for their current home, review the seller disclosure and make note of condition of big ticket repair items. So if you know the HVAC needs to get done, make a notate of it, or start estimating how much it will get done. Because if you're able to find a good price at $2,000, this helps you be more knowledgeable, because somebody may say, oh, we're going to need to get the HVAC done. It's going to be another $5,000. So we're going to need to take $5,000 off your selling price. And it's like, no. I already checked. Here's an estimate. It should only cost $2,000. I'd be agreeable to $2,000. So, and go forward from there. And then that's where you go to the last one. Work with trusted professionals who care about your financial well-being. For me, I want you to get the best support and best advice that you need. So if there is any questions and I can't answer them, I definitely will point you in the right direction. Or if there's a realtor with more expertise than I do, I will definitely make sure that you get their info, especially if I'm going to connect with them. Documentation. Get your pencils and pens ready. Documentation is needed for every sale. The key word is, folks, every sale. So bank statements, your bank should, I'm saying this again, your bank should, because it is 2020, but your bank should be able to allow you to access the account, so that way you're able to pull up past bank statements. Photo ID and social security card, a little neat trick, I should say, but again, make sure your phone is definitely protected and you got it locked down. I would actually even download an app that actually has a password vault where you can store documentation, and I would recommend just taking a picture of your photo ID and social security card, and make sure that you have that handy for when it comes time, because in the long run, all you're doing is taking a picture of it and sending it over to whomever needs it, whether it be the mortgage lender or the realtor. Your tax returns, excuse me, get started on it now. Definitely the IRS is busy. Definitely the IRS is busy. I don't know if I mentioned it, but definitely the IRS is busy right now. So we're pretty much getting, it's the beginning of May. We've already got the extension to do taxes, and people are pretty much now getting the swing of things. So as far as filing and such. So make sure that, when you get your tax returns, especially for this year, that you save it as a PDF document onto a drive of some sort, whether it be a flash drive, Google Drive, you can even put it in the cloud, but definitely still make sure, and even, like I said, downloading an app and putting it in like a password vault type app where you could save it for later. W-2s, same thing. Make sure you have that handy and ready, especially when it comes to proof of employment. As far as keeping records, I would recommend go back 3 years, and this is just for your protection. Depending upon the job, you might have had a job that ended in 2018, but your current job, that you're currently working at, but for whatever reason, they may need that. So it's better to have than have not. And of course, your pay stubs. With your pay stubs, I would recommend going back 2 months. Every lender is going to be different, but just to keep account, and that way you could get started in accessing your pay stubs, or even just finding that way. Like, okay, when it comes time for accessing my pay stubs, I go on this website and go through here in order to get it. Or I need to send a fax confirmation form to request it, or I may need to call a person. So as long as you have the steps for all 5 of these, you'll be a-okay. And document process. So the document process is simple this. So you have the initial review of documents for pre-approval. The documents are submitted to the processor to look for missing pages or incorrect information. So that gets back to that W-2 and tax return. So if it's missing something that should have been there, or hey, how come they had a business in 2017, but not in 2018, and all of a sudden it's back in 2019? What happened in 2018? So things like that. They're responsible for reviewing, and this is the loan processor. Your loan and documents head to the underwriter once the loan processor checks off everything. Now, the underwriter sends back conditions and requests for more documents or explanations. So somebody may have skipped over the information about the business. It's like, oh, well, it must have shut down and came back up. Meanwhile, the underwriter's like, no. I'm going to need some explanation as to why you took a year off of the business and then it came back. So, and also they may be asking about transaction history. Let's say you receive $5,000 from, an investment return, or $5,000 from an inheritance. God forbid somebody had passed away in the family. Certain things such as that, the underwriter is going to need to know more info about. So do your own research. And if you see something big on your account where you're like, whoa, you know what? They might want to look into that. Let me make sure I have that documentation ready. And then once everything is done, then the loan is resubmitted to the underwriter for final approval. So starting at the top, it's initial review of the documents just to make sure everything is good to go. Then the documents are sent to the loan processor just to make sure no missing pages is and they're pretty much going by a checklist. And then after that, then it goes to the underwriter to make sure specifically, okay, all right, I got page 12 of what I need, but this employment, what happened here again in 2018? And, I'm pretty sure a year or two from now, definitely everybody is going to, for the majority part, probably will be putting down, the reason for the gap in employment for whatever reason. So as it applies to them. And then lastly, the loan is resubmitted to the underwriter for final approval. Now, the loan types, which one is right for you? Again, which one is going to be right for you? Which one is going to help you? Which one is going to be the most beneficial to you? So there are different types of loans, and I am not the loan expert, nor do I plan on being. It's a lot of numbers, and I just don't have 20 million calculators on standby. But just to give you a brief overview, you have your fixed rate versus ARM loans. Now, fixed rate is that set rate, okay? So, and I'm just using fun numbers out here, but if you bought a house for $1 and the 5% interest rate applies to that loan for that dollar, you will be paying 5 cents for that dollar as part of the fixed rate and part of the terms. Your terms may be 15 years, 30 years, 20 years, what have you, but it will be that fixed rate set at that percentage. Now, an ARM loan might be beneficial in some ways. You might be able to get a low ball interest rate because of everything that's going on, and you might be benefiting from it. So if your interest rate decides to drop down to 1%, hey, oh man, this is the time where I could double up on my payments. Or it could go all the way up where it's like, well, because of market concerns or because we're doing really good, interest rate is now at 10%. But again, it answers the question, which loan is best for you? And it depends upon your ownership goals and plans. Conventional versus FHA, what is the difference? Conventional, the main thing I just want to put out there for conventional and FHA is the percentage of what you need to put down. Conventional sometimes goes as low as 5%, all the way up to 20%. Meanwhile, the FHA is set at 3.5%. Now, there may be some changes with the FHA and conventional loan that could change that interest rate, but I want you to think about the bigger picture here when it comes to that. And let's go back to the dollar example. If you were to borrow $1 from somebody with the conventional loan at 20% interest rate, then you would be owing 20 cents on that dollar. If you were to choose an FHA loan, it would be 3.5%. So you are looking at excuse me, just 3.5%, so half a cent. So, but rounding up, we'll just say 4 cents. So you're looking at 4 cents on that dollar. So the gap of 16 and a half cents for every dollar, but you still got to look back at your needs. Is the conventional loan going to be beneficial for me in the long run or in the short term? And the same thing for FHA. Is this going to be beneficial for me in the long run or the short term? And it does go back to credit qualifications. You're going to need a certain credit score to get to a conventional. You're going to need a certain credit score to get a FHA. Down payment minimums, and even with the mortgage insurance for a conventional loan, you might not have that great of a credit score, so they may attach on mortgage insurance, which is a percentage added to how much you owe on the purchase of the loan. So you might only have 7% for a conventional loan, but because your credit score is not where it needs to be at, they might charge you 3 points in mortgage insurance, which gets you up to 10%. So now on that same dollar example, you're now paying 10 cents on the dollar. Now, down payment and closing costs. So what I was talking about before, between 3.5% and 20% on the down payment, your transfer tax. This is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I just want to be clear about this, that this is, as I take a sip of water here, is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So the transfer tax is the tax of the actual purchase price. The total of it is actually 4.28%. It is not legally required. It's recommended, highly recommended. Because it's just split down the middle. But the transfer tax of purchasing a property attaches onto the closing costs. So be mindful of that as part of the part of your closing costs that you definitely will need to pay for. But the buyer should be paying the 2.14%, and then the seller should be paying the 2.14%, adds a total of 4.28% that goes to the city and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Seller tax reimbursements, that may be if the seller decides to provide some seller financing and assisting. So if they say that, hey, the purchase price is going for $200,000, but you work out a deal where they knock all $5,000 off, that's where that seller reimbursement comes into play. Title insurance. In regards to running the title on the property, you may or may not need title insurance just to make sure for when it does come back, you are protected. There are recording fees to make sure that it is documented down, such as a deed. There are fees for loan origination. Somebody's got to pay the loan processor, so a portion of the fees goes out for that. The lender escrows, as far as putting the escrow amount money for the deposit money into an escrow account and getting that set up and started. Home insurance and home inspection. These are all things that you should be looking at as far as when it comes down to the closing costs. Everybody's going to be different. Please know that everybody's going to be different. So the down payment, the transfer tax, seller tax reimbursements, title insurance, all the way through the home inspection. One inspector is definitely going to charge a different price than another inspector. It might be around the same ball game of $100, $110, but one may be more and one may be less. So please don't look at an exact amount, but definitely have a roundabout figure. Now, for all of this combined, when it comes down to the closing costs, to be safe, I would recommend insuring and making sure that when it comes to the closing costs that you have up to a maximum of 10% of the purchase price of the house just on standby. Everybody's going to be different. It might not be that much, but just to have a good indication, I would recommend saying 10%. And assets for buying and where to get them. So assets, it's like, all right, well, I got my job, but where else can I get some money to get this beautiful home that I want? So personal checking and savings account. And the main thing here is it's not so much, oh, your personal checking and savings account, but it's also talking to your bank. Talking to your bank in regards to, they have any personal loans out that they can attach to your account, something that you know that you'll be able to pay back over time. Because let's say you have a decent enough credit score that you get a $5,000 loan and pay off your credit cards. Now you're knocking out maybe 3 credit cards and having the one loan that you only need to make installment payments on. So, and that goes back to their value as well. It's like, oh wow, they're really looking at it instead of keeping some revolving credit around. Retirement accounts. A lot of people don't know about their 401ks. So you might want to look into that with your employer or past employers as well. I had an account with TIA credit that I completely forgot about. And don't get me wrong, wasn't a whole lot in there, but I remember closing it out and they said, hey, listen, you know, you will have this leftover balance until you officially close this out. So that will be there. And I did not check that for about 8, 9 years because it wasn't doing anything as far as increasing the balance or what have you. But the $60 definitely took care of some gas that week, and I was able to put some money on a cell phone. I'm only keeping it real with you guys. So with the retirement account, you want to make sure, see how much money you have in there, see how much money your employer is contributing to it, especially during these times right now. Stocks and bonds, the same thing, you know, see, hey, do I have any bonds? Ask, you know, your parents, if you are at that age where you're able to ask your parents. But no matter what, ask your parents, hey, is there any bonds or stocks that are left in my name that I don't know about? And even going into the familial gifts, that's just simply asking. That's not that they already have that money set for you. So don't think, oh man, I just heard this first time home buyers workshop with Daniel Umstead. He's a great realtor, and they said my uncle should have $5,000 waiting for me. No, when it comes down to purchasing a home, asking family members if they're able to provide a gift for you. And then ultimately, grants and DPA programs. So that's pretty much just dependent upon your current financial situation, what type of grants that you can get right now, what programs that you could be a part of to get you closer into getting a home. So important info about assets. It's all income qualifying you for the loan that needs to be documented either through pay stubs or reported income on your taxes. Your gifts need to be traceable. So if you're receiving a gift, it should be done as a wire transfer or check. So don't be asking uncle or auntie just for $5,000 in cash. Make sure that they can provide a source as where it's coming from, and that way it's being documented that, hey, this amount was used towards for the home. And lastly, large untraceable deposits may cause a red flag in your loan, so always double check before making a large withdrawal or doing a deposit on the account. So the main steps in the home buying process, so we can wrap it up here. And again, I want to thank you all so much for joining. The beginning part, pre-approval. You want to make sure that the next time that you talk, or the first time that you talk to a real estate agent, is saying, hey, I am pre-approved for buying a house at up to $150,000. How can you help? Bam, that that narrows the target area and the home qualities. You're able to view homes, get estimated closing costs on home. Like I said, everything's going to be different, but keep in mind, you're looking at a $200,000 home. Look at the closing cost to be around 20K or under, I should say, 20K max and then under. Make an offer on a home, and that's where it comes to those proof of funds, and you know, show them, not so much show them what's in your account, but actually being able to have the realtor give some ammo to that seller saying like, hey, my buyer is ready to go, so what can we do? Now, once you have the offer accepted, yes, this is where it's like, all right, let me make sure this is really, really the house that I'm looking for. So you want to schedule inspections, termite and such. If there's any faulty wiring that needs to be looked at. So that's part of the inspection. Submit a full official loan application, and that's simply with the loan application, hey, I was already pre-approved for 150,000, looking at the house for 150,000, they accepted my offer for 150,000, I am looking to get a loan for 150,000. So, and then order title report, that's making sure that there's nothing negative on that home, like a tax lien or mechanics lien or money that's holding that. Pretty much the title is making sure that the money that's holding up on that house has been cleared away or it's been paid for. Order the appraisal. That $150,000 home might not be a $150,000 home. Or on the reverse end, that $150,000 home might be worth a little bit more. So that's the point of the appraisal, making sure that the value that you're paying for is actually matching up what the price is. And then you submit your final documentation, and then you close on your new home. So again, like I said, thank you again so much for joining me. Any questions, comments, concerns, inquiries that you'd like to have, especially with the credit repair, or just general questions about financial literacy, by all means, please give me a call. I can be reached at either number. You can also text the 267 number, 702-3756. Or if you're looking at houses right now, feel free to go to danielumstead.exprealty.com. So I want to thank you all again.
Fleslet on the beat.